Welcome back to Dirt and All. It's episode 24, and today we are joined by Adrian Pope. Adrian's the Chief Executive Officer of Apeiron Corporation. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Good.
Adrian's a big fan of the show, and he rang me at the beginning of the year because we met quite some time ago, which we'll get into this in America, actually.
Yeah.
And you rang me after Christmas, and you told me that you'd spent your Christmas holidays listening to the show, and you started at the start, and you've now worked your way the whole way through them.
Yeah, I have, mate. I have. I sort of when you'd reached out and sort of mentioned about coming on and having a talk, I thought better listen to the podcast, hey, and I did, and I actually really enjoyed it, mate.
And I know you do because a lot of people, my friends and family, say, "Oh yeah, we listen to the show." And look, I'm incredibly time poor. I don't listen to that many podcasts myself, but I do sort of get taken aback a little bit when I meet someone like yourself that I know genuinely has listened to every bit of shit talk that we've had in this table. So, mate, I do appreciate it. And the reason I did reach out to you is I think you have an epic story. And we're going to go back to the start, but I think we should begin the story by saying that you had a bit of an interesting journey here this morning.
Yeah. It's been a long trip, actually, to get here to the studio because I was in China last night. So, flew through the night and then come down this morning, which with the rail tracks not working either, was buses and trains, but it was an adventure, but we got here.
How many buses did you get on before you jumped out and got an Uber?
Oh, I was over that, yeah. 2 buses, 2 trains, and by the 3rd train I went, that's it, I'm done.
But, mate, I think that speaks to you as a person, as the CEO of Apeiron Corp, that you are still out there with the average common folk. I don't even do buses.
Mate. Yeah, no, look, I'm more at home in a pair of footy shorts and a ripped T-shirt than I am a business suit, but that's the path that I've taken, you know, but I certainly am more comfortable, knocking around, in the scrub, I suppose. This is the best way to put it.
What were you doing in China?
Well, yeah, that's a bit of a story in itself. I suppose if we step back a little bit, there's things that I've noticed in the industry, where we can, in the mining industry in particular, where there's gaps in the market, and we've identified them, over the years. I actually went to Canberra. Actually, Bobby Cutter took me down there because he's seen the vision and he's seen what we've done. Rob Cutter is his son.
Oh, yeah.
And it was actually Rob that I spoke to, and he come and seen what we were doing, and then he straight away called his father and said, "You need to come and have a look at this." This is a couple of years ago, and they can see the direction that we were taking in the manufacturing and what we were doing in Melbourne. And to their credit, he could see the vision and he could see what I wanted to do. And Bob's all about Australia, manufacturing in Australia, and so am I. I'm a proud Aussie. But, after going to Canberra on a federal level and lobbying the government and getting nowhere, it just fell on deaf ears. And, we won't get into our state of our politics because that's a whole nother episode.
It is.
But I'm not one to be defeated, and look, unfortunately, I had to take this offshore, and that's why I was in China. We've, this time was a little bit different, but recently, we've manufactured a prototype, brought it to Australia, and it's been performing unbelievably underground since around September, October last year. We've made no announcements around that yet, but that's happening very, very soon this year. So stay tuned, people. I suppose is the best part. We're still in the last throes of making sure we're happy with it, but it's doing some amazing stuff. So yeah, really, really happy, and looking forward to a bit of an industry release coming up very soon this year.
I think echoing that air of mystery that surrounds what we're talking about right now, for many of our audience who are probably very much so in the above ground world, you're the second guest we've had on this show that is more underground centric from the mining world. And a lot of people by now are probably asking themselves, what is Apeiron Corp?
Yeah, okay.
Can you maybe give us a high level overview? Because a lot of the businesses that sit within your structure, the people listening to the show will know, but they might not know who's who in the zoo.
Yeah. Well, Apeiron Corp, it's the overarching company that looks after the group, basically. So, I've extracted myself out of where I originally started at Pope's. There's management in there, and there's management across all the different companies that report back to myself and our team, that looks after all the other stuff that goes on in the background, the HR, the finance, cash flow, all of that sort of thing, and manages across all the companies. So, all the companies within the group, they're all vertically integrated. They all revolve around the mining industry in one way or another. They specialise in various parts in the industry, but it's all mining. It's all I know. Underground mining is my passion. It's my love. So yeah.
So if you're out there wondering what all these businesses are, you can jump onto Apeiron's website and you can get a pretty good overview of everything. But from the top, inside your group, you've got Popey's Diesel Services, Powertrain Components Australia, Tartarus Underground Hire, Research and Development Company, B&S Precision Engineering, and the Rock Drill Company.
Yeah.
Is there anything I've missed that hasn't been updated on the website? Or
not really, not yet. There's a couple of ideas out there, but at the moment, we're sticking with what we've got at the moment and just keep building and growing those companies.
So from the beginning, it was Popey's Diesel Services, your core business that then stemmed the growth of the corporation?
It was. That was the dream. That was the passion. I always wanted to work for myself, and I wanted a one-stop shop. Like there's always, say, a diesel fitting company that just does that and then has to, subcontract out the boiler making or the machining or the auto electrical. So, the dream was always to have the one-stop shop. If they bought a loader in and it needed work on the bucket, the boilers could jump onto it and the sparkies could fix the lights. And, we've got line borers and machinists and just everything can be done. The cylinders can be pulled out because they're leaking and go to the component room, be rebuilt, tested and refitted, So it speeds up our turnaround times because we're not waiting on subcontractors. We can set our own destiny, within the complex. And it also lowers the cost for our clients as well because we're not having to put a margin on top of subcontract work. So, it makes us very, very competitive in the industry. So that's where I started, was Popey's Diesel. That's what everyone knows me as. So I wasn't real inventive with the name.
You didn't engage a branding agency to come up with the name?
No, I didn't. So.
And look, that's shout out to my brother Dion, who is the reason that you and I know each other. So Dion, my brother, works for Popey's Diesel, and then I was at Mine Expo a few years back, and he texted me and he said, "Hey, Popey's over there. You guys should meet up." And we had a quick get together at DGI's booth in the main hall there, and
we did.
It was just a quick chat, but here we are now, mate. It's
a couple of years later.
A couple of years later, we got there. So
shout out to Dion. He's done well. He's come through there and done his apprenticeship and turned into a fine young tradesman. So we've turned out a lot of tradesmen in a lot of different trades over the years. I'm really, really proud to say that we've turned out Apprentice of the Years and Apprentice of the Year nominees. So it's been very, very successful for the young men and women that we've brought through there.
You guys are obviously a pretty prominent employer there in Mount Isa. It's not the mines themselves, obviously.
Look, we employ a lot of people. We're big believers in apprentices as well. You have to train your people, and it's something that's, a big shortfall in our country at the moment is the amount of trainees and apprentices that are going through the system. So, we do what we can, and we've put a lot of people through over the years, which I'm really happy about.
Yep. I want to get a bit of an overview of each one of these businesses in your umbrella of businesses, if that's the best way to describe them. But I think maybe, because you and I have spoken about this briefly, I want to go back to the start because you do have a really cool story of how you transitioned into where you are now.
Into the mining industry?
Into the mining industry, because you didn't start in the mining industry.
No, that's right. But
so how did it happen? Take us back.
Well, I suppose if I step right back, my father had a fairly distinguished career in the mining industry. His whole career was mining, so what choice did I have? He had a passion for it, and a shout out to Dad as well, I suppose, because his work ethic is what's instilled into me. He's made me who I am, and and I thank him for that. Sometimes after 16, 18-hour days, maybe not, but he worked 5 days a week. Well, actually, I'll step back. My official mining career started in 1996. I suppose when I left my mechanical apprenticeship, which I'll go back to, and I moved to Mount Isa to start in the mines. Unofficially, my mining career started in around 1986 when I was about 9 years old, and my father, he worked for a mining company 5 days a week, and on the weekends, he was three-way partners in their own mine that they used to go and work, and so I used to go out with him. And they used to work the weekends. So essentially he worked 7 days a week for years and years on end because they worked every Saturday and Sunday in their own mine. So I spent time underground, with him and on the surface. Underground was an experience, but, when you're 9 years old climbing down ladders and going underground, I look back at it now and shake my head and go, I'll probably never let my son do that. But It was just what you did back in the day, you know.
Well, mate, we've been underground to do some filming with Cougar Group. And it was pretty difficult for us to get down there, and not just to get inducted to go down there, but to get all the camera gear signed off by the electrical engineers. And we're obviously at the coalface, so to speak, where they're draining the methane.
Yeah.
And here you are at 9 years old, just popping down underground.
Probably a bit different. It wasn't coal; it was hard rock. You know, tin was the metal they were chasing back then. But I mean, you're still dealing with explosives, and you know, I remember the very first time that. Well, I actually seen, that was back in the day before it was electric detonators like they are now, and you actually used to light the fuses, you know, and I used to go underground when it was time to charge and basically pull the trigger so we could load the ANFO into the face, and then Dad he'd turn around to me and say, "Off you go, boy," and I'd wander out down the drive and climb the ladders back to the surface. And anyway, I was waiting this one day for him to say, you know, "On your bike, get out of here," and I'm waiting, and he picked up the gas burner and he lit it, and you know, and I'm going, "Hey, Dad," just reminding him I'm still here. "Hey, Dad," and he's turned around and he said, "Here, I'll let you see this once and once only in your life," and that's the only time I ever seen it. And he turned around and he lit all the fuses, and here it is burning, and he said, "Righto, let's go," and I turned to run like hell, and I remember that big bear paw coming down on my shoulder, and he said to me, "Yeah, never run, mate. Never run, because you fall over and break your leg, and then this thing's going to fire all over the top of you, you know."
Right.
And so we wandered out, climbed the ladders, and that was the only time I ever seen it. But as a 9-year-old, it was. I look back at all that now and realise how much, you know, I think about it, that you actually learn when you look back at what they were doing, you know. So, and even though it's a different time now, mining's still mining. We still drill holes, we fill it up with explosives, we blow it up, and we cart it out of the hole. It's, in the essence, that's it. That's hard rock mining.
Yep.
So.
And, you know, like it certainly gave us a massive appreciation for what happens underground. Again, completely different style of mining, but the 6 or so hours that we were down there, it's another world.
It is.
And mate, it's a dirty world. It's hot. It's cold. Depending if you're in a ventilation shaft or where you are, there's a fair few different environments down there, and it's highly dangerous place to operate.
I think there's no it's okay. It's either you love it or you hate it.
Yep.
You know, there's no in between, or there wasn't for me anyway, and I loved it. I absolutely loved every minute I spent underground. And still, you know, I don't go under much anymore. Probably 6 months ago, I went under at a local mine, you know, when you drive down the portal and you know, as you disappear into the darkness, I still get that kick, you know, that, this is fun, you know.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy it.
So, you're in Mount Isa now at this point. How did you get, and you're obviously, this is at a young age, how did your career evolve into this world? Obviously, there's where the passion and the first exposure came to it.
Yeah, so I always wanted to get into mining, you know, one way or another. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was going to be a miner or in the mining game. And, you know, once I finished high school and at those times there, it was always around getting an apprenticeship, so you had something to fall back on. And you know, so I actually gained a mechanical apprenticeship back home on the Atherton Tablelands where I grew up, and I started with Holden, and my plan was to finish, you know, my mechanical apprenticeship, and then, you know, look to, you know, either do another diesel fitting apprenticeship or just move, you know, transition into the mining industry through that. And after a couple of years, I seen in Mount Isa they were advertising for a massive intake of apprentices, not just locals but from outside. So I applied for that, and I got the job, and I transferred. Well, I actually started again, you know, and I moved to Mount Isa, and then I undertook a diesel fitting apprenticeship with Mount Isa Mines, and it was one of the best things I ever did.
And you I'm not, and I've said this a lot of times in this show, I'm not a hyper mechanically minded person. What was the learning curve coming up from, you know, the Holden world and stepping into mining, mate? How did that go?
Huge. There's no Holdens underground, that's for sure. No VR Commodores when I started, you know.
Yeah, the VR era, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I pretty much, because I was 19 then, you know, so I was classed as an adult apprentice and that, and somehow I managed to basically go straight underground, which was, you know, you never sort of really went underground until you're at least the third year, so you had some sort of experience in that there. I actually turned up. My first shift was a night shift, and I started on what they used to call 17 South level at the time, and the shift boss said to me, "Mate, on the end bay there's a rhino go around. It's sitting on the service ramp. Go around and finish the service. So I walked around as far as I could. And I thought, well, this is the end bay, and I seen a machine sitting on top of on a ramp, and I went, well, that must be a rhino, and that was my introduction to it. So it was a real steep learning curve, and there's always a thirst for knowledge, and whether just I love learning, and we never stop, So I really loved all that. I learnt so much in the first couple of years, underground there, and made a lot of good friends out in the Isa, which I've still got to this day. It's a great town. It's and it's a small industry, as you know. Like everyone knows everyone. Whether or not in Australia wide or even globally. Australians got a good name in the mining industry across the globe. We're very, very good at what we do, and there's a lot of Australians work all over the world. And everyone knows everyone.
Yep, it is a small world, and even like the bulk of the people that we've had on this show are from the surface mining world and civils and infrastructure services. But even now, the more I have to do with underground, the crossover just still continues. Obviously not as incestuous as the other little subsects, but it is. Everything's just interconnected. And look at what we're sitting on in this country here.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yep. So from that point, what was the transition that made you think I'm going to go out and go on my own and do this for myself?
Oh, like I said, it's always something that I wanted to do, and I'd really noticed that no one was doing it. You had your OEMs, your Caterpillar, your Sandvik, your Epiroc, and that, but there was no aftermarket repairers anywhere. And that sort of tweaked me to start with. And then, what I did is I wanted to work out and around other mines, meet people, learn new ways to do things, gain more knowledge in the industry. So I went and, actually before I did that, I went and took on a job as a fitter operator on a decline project that was being sunk in a mine just north of Mount Isa. And that was really good because I got not only, to fix the gear, but when there was nothing broken, I got to operate it as well. And that increased your knowledge as well because you really understand the capabilities of machinery that you are operating, not just fixing it, And then I actually did transition for some time into operations full time. I left the diesel fitting trade and and went charge up and off-siding and ended up on a jumbo as a jumbo operator for about probably 12 or 18 months full time before I decided, it's time to get back into the trade and I want to do this for myself. So that's when I began working around other mine sites and other places, like I said, to gain experience and meet new people. Before I sort of went out on my own.
So did you, when you did decide to go out on your own, how did you do it?
Well, I looked at it. I was working a 2 weeks on, 1 week off roster, and it's a bit hard to. You couldn't go and pull something apart and then come back 2 weeks later for a client to put it back together, So I looked for another job where it was like a week on, week off. It was a pretty big pay cut to do that, but with the vision in mind in front that I could start for myself someday, because what I wanted to do on my week off was look to establish a client base and before I just jumped feet first into it. So I started working all my days off and getting a client base together. And that went on for some time. I was working this mad roster where I used to do 7 days on at the mine site and fly out, and then I do 6 days on at home. And then I do 7 night shifts, and then I do 5 day shifts. And that just continued on for probably over 12 months, 12 or 18 months, And it's sustainable when you're in your 20s. You can do it pretty easy, Yeah. But I'd hate to be trying to start to do that now again, But yeah, once I'd established a client, but where people were just ringing, and I'm going, man, I don't even have time to go back to work, to do my other full-time job because I've got so much other work on. And that was when I took the leap and went, right, hey, let's do this. So, I'd already bolted the tools in the back of my Toyota and put the revolving lights on, and we were away. That's how I started. I actually took $5,000 out of my cashback facility on my home loan, and I paid my insurances and, bought some business cards and away I went. That's where I started.
And you would already had like a lot of good relationships. Did you just start door knocking and handing out cards and just
Pretty
just have a
much.
crack?
Yeah. There was no social media. I didn't even have a mobile phone then. That's the only reason I bought a mobile phone is because I started a business, you know.
Was it like the I remember my old man, there was the brick, but it was like an esky and it had a arrow you'd pull up and it'd still be corded but attached to this.
Yeah,
It
was 2005 when I first, so they'd already gone from those real big phones to see how small they could make them before they started making them big again.
Sorry, so I'm probably casting my mind back too far, and I apologise if I just made you seem older than you are.
Not the 80s and 90s.
We're past the Nokia 3315 by this point. We're pretty much moving into colour screens.
Oh yeah, no, I was a long way behind everyone before I bought a mobile.
Well, that's kind of makes me feel better about how I just positioned that, because you did hold off for a long time.
I did.
You missed.
I did.
Yeah, you probably weren't sitting around playing Snake on the Nokia 3315.
I was busy doing something else. Yeah, you had to ring and leave a message on my answering machine. That's what I had.
Yeah, cool. Oh, mate, it's and like so where did you go from? You're essentially a field service mechanic free agent at this point.
Yep.
To going, I need a yard and I need to start to.
Yeah, I had people saying we're sending the machines. You know, yeah, I had some men. We all ran out of the back of my utes and just ran mobile. But again, clients ringing up going, we're going to send you a truck, we're going to send you a jumbo. And going, you had to borrow some space to work on it. So, I established a workshop, a small workshop, which we outgrew in no time at all. Well, we kicked the workshop off in 2008, right when the GFC hit, basically about 3 months before, and the GFC hit, and I went, oh no, what have I done? But in hindsight, because it was bad times, and everyone out there, be it contractors or tier one miners, they wanted to know how to save money, and our rates weren't as high as the OEMs, and we didn't have the overheads that they had, so we were very competitive.
Yeah.
And people would say to me, how do I save money? I'd say, send me more work. That's how you save money. Yep. The more work you send us, the more money you'll save. And we. So we very quickly outgrew that workshop, and then we ended up buying another facility and building, the main workshops and the boiler making shops and the machine shops, and that's where we are now. Yeah, in 2011, we moved in there around Easter 2011.
Yeah,
and we're still there now. So and then the growth has just gone from there.
So you've been in the mining industry for over 30 years now.
Yep.
You weathered the GFC.
Yep.
I've been in business for 7 years, and I don't really recall any of the impacts that happened back then on my own life at that point in time. It's a lot of doom and gloom out there now. We're not going to talk politics and economics and too much about the current state of the world, but like, do you see what's happening now shaping up to be, obviously you're in a different place with your company now, but do you see similarities in things that are beginning to happen now? Like, what's your sort of take?
Look, I think we're strongly placed with what's going on in the world, being, the mining industry is so critical with everything we do, with everything we do, with the cars we drive, with the phones that we talk on, with these lights on that are around us, it's all driven from the mining industry. Absolutely 100%. Every bit of it, And while, they're pushing, critical mineral mining and base metal mining like copper and that because of these renewables, I think we're poised to be in a very good position.
Yep.
So I've got a lot of confidence around the market that we're in at the moment. Yeah.
Yep. So at what point did the opportunity come to expand out away from Popey's diesel service into the next part of your vertical?
I'll tell you what, I'm always, looking for opportunity, and I suppose my fiance has probably put it best, even though I went, nah, yeah, full of shit, that's not right. But she sort of pointed out to me there a couple of years ago, and I should give her a shout out, Jess. Thanks very much for all the support. Behind every good man, they say is a good woman. She's a bloody good woman, because she's backed me to where I am now.
Yep.
She's always said. When I've got so much going on, and like today, I'm running from planes to bus here and there and everywhere, that's when I'm at my happiest. And when things are settled and, and I'm going, I'm bored, need to start something, So, and I think she's right, I thrive on, being kept busy and challenges. And so I think it was just a natural transition that, more was going to come. And I suppose with Powertrain Components, before that, there was Ozhose in Townsville that we had. It was a hydraulic shop that we recently sold a few years ago. But Powertrain Components was identified, there was a gap in the market in Australia. And around that, the specialised side of it, because that's all it does, exactly what the name is. It's, again, wasn't too much thought, but it says who we are.
But it definitely feels like you put a little bit more effort into it.
Oh, yeah. No, I did do a bit of thinking about that one, but it says exactly who we are. It just specialises in that, the axles, transmissions and converters. That's all we do.
Yep.
So we set up in Mackay, head office in Mackay, and since then we've expanded. We've got another branch in Mount Isa. We've got a branch that's actually opening right now as we speak in Newcastle, which is exciting. Just come back from America a few weeks ago. We went over there and seen our partners because we do work with Northern Star out of Pogo Mine in Alaska. And logistically, to have that gear sent back to Australia just doesn't work. So we have it sent from Fairbanks in Alaska into our partners at M West. It gets repaired and it goes straight back. So that's been a good thing for us as well. And look, we've got more plans with Powertrain as well. It's been a monumental rise, from absolutely not having a name to 8 years later to have a few branches. We've got a distributor in Western Australia as well. So yeah, look, it's really kicking some goals there.
Whereabouts in Newcastle is the new branch?
Beresfield?
Yep.
Yeah, yep. So we're just kicking off over there. I haven't even been down there yet. 4th of May, yep. I'm flying down to see it all. I've been getting regular updates and photos as it's all getting set up. So, and it's looking magic. It's really looking good down there. So I'm excited to get there.
We spoke about this yesterday and the last couple of episodes. You were at ConExpo as well. I was at ConExpo. We were very close to each other at the NRL. It's one of those things where like so many people are there, but you just don't see them.
Yeah.
It's again,
yeah, that's right. We missed each other.
Yeah, I know.
Vegas got hold of us that night.
Vegas got a hold of it. Like honestly, I think I counted about 75 people I knew that were on the ground there, whether they're clients, suppliers, friends. I probably saw 4.
Yep,
I reckon.
And then I ran into some people. The first person that I got out when I got out of the Uber at the casino when we were pulling up, I ran into a bloke from Mount Isa.
Oh, there you go.
Straight away as I stood out. And then I ran into a bloke I went to school with I haven't seen in over 30 years.
Yeah, right.
And he was with the Mount Isa guys. So it was crazy. So, yeah, it was a good trip.
So run me through the underground hire part of your business.
Tataris, yep.
And you, pull me up if I mispronounce any of this because I was mispronouncing Apeiron as Apeiron.
Yeah.
It sounded very like Elron techie, but I realised that a lot of your naming devices come from the mythology.
Well, some of it is. Tataris did, and actually it was Jess again come up with that name, and I just liked it.
She's marketing.
Yeah,
in your world.
She's just last year in September last year come on board with us. Again, she had 17 years in the mining industry, but has come on board full time with us, and she's looking after the marketing side.
Well, as I look at this list, I want to give Jess a shout out because again, I'm not going to keep putting shit on your original business name, but you can see the creativity.
It's changed. Look, no, Apeiron was mine.
Mate, I think it's very unique.
Yeah, look, that took me 7 months to come up with the name Apeiron because I wanted something special, you know, and that's a Latin background, and it translates basically into meaning limitless potential and infinite possibilities. And when I seen that, I just went, that's us. Because when you look at all of these companies, the only thing that, like if you come to me with an idea or a problem, the only thing that could limit you would be your imagination.
Yep.
Because with what we can do with our, with the research and development company, and we'll go through these in a minute, but, we can prototype, we can design, we can even manufacture. So the sky's the limit.
So the higher component of it, are you guys operating all over Australia? Are you?
Yep. So Tataris, that wasn't a built from scratch. That was an acquisition, but it was rebranded.
Yep.
So I had dabbled a little bit in hire gear, and I had a couple here and there, but was never serious and wanted to be.
Yep.
And then the opportunity arose where it was sort of brought to me that there was a mining fleet out there for sale, and long story short, we got the deal done in September of 2022. So we haven't been around that long, but we've got some great management there. Shout out to Matty, he's doing a magic job. We've grown the business exponentially in the last 4 years, and there's no stopping at the moment.
So I think one of the moments where I realised how far because like when I met you, I didn't realise the scope of what you guys had happening, and I thought you had Popey's Diesel up there in Mount Isa, and I was down at Pie Bar in Orange with the Cougar, and Reese was with me. We were shooting, and I jumped up on top of a machine. I looked down, here's a Popey's Diesel badge in the yard there, and so like, well, what does that fleet size look like? What and for those listeners out there that aren't too familiar with all the underground gear, like, what do you guys have? How big's the fleet? What's it? What do you do with that?
Look, we cover all bases, I guess. So trucks, loaders, jumbos, ancillary equipment. So like integrated tool carriers, explosives vehicles. So basically, we need to be able to have everything in the fleet, graders, because if you ring up and you need a grader, we got one, or we'll find one. That's the thing. It's not like, no, we don't have one. Sorry, look, how long do you need it for? And let's see if we can dig one up from somewhere, or purchase one, or whatever the case may be. So, the fleet's ever growing. It's approaching 50 units at the moment, so which has been a bit of a feat because it's more than doubled in size since inception. So. It's been really good. The fleet's a modern fleet now, or if it's a bit of older gear, it's been fully rebuilt. So to a new standard. So no, it's been really good.
Yep. Forgive the just blatant lack of knowledge around that. This world, it's all dry hire gear straight into the mines.
Yeah. There's no operators. It just gets dry hired straight to the mine site. Like you said, all over Australia, so Tassie, WA. It's quicker probably to say where they're not. We don't have anything in South Australia at the moment. That's about it.
And is this the order I've got in front of me here? Did the research and development company come after that? Is this is the order of your companies?
It was around probably just before Tataris, when we were starting to talk. The research and development company formed out of, again, how, like we say, everyone's got an idea. Tradesmen especially, that people work with their hands, they always think of some ways to do something different. And this happened to me as very young in my career, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't, and then I seen that idea. Maybe 6 or 7 years later, someone had taken it and done it and made it work. And I went, wow, but I still had more ideas. And basically that's why that company was formed. So you can come to us with an idea. Or I can get these mad ideas out of my head down on paper, or anyone else's, our business partners, our managers, everyone's got ideas. So we can get these down on paper. Yeah. And I guess, so we did have an idea around a drifter. And that was the thing that the Catters were looking at there a couple of years ago. That's something we're still working on in the background, and that we're getting some successful test results around. But that's how the BNS, if we move down the list of companies, the BNS Precision Engineering come about, because when we needed to make the prototypes, once, we'd had the drawings and that, we approached BNS in Melbourne. They were a very high-end machining manufacturing shop in Melbourne. And we had them manufacture our first 2 prototype drifters. Look, long story short, we bought them out, so then we can just make whatever we want, whenever we want, locally in Melbourne. The reason it's in Melbourne, and people have asked, how come you don't do it in Queensland, or how come you don't do it in Mount Isa? Melbourne's got everything to offer for us with heat treatment processes. There's 5 million more people than there is in Mount Isa. So, there's a bigger pool of people to draw on. So, it was, it was an established business. It had good people there. So, once we took over that, and then obviously the last company is what sort of formed, which was always going to happen once you've got a prototype drifter, was the rock drill company. Yep. So that, again, that's only recently kicked off in the last 18 months. But, again, there's a lacking in the market for, within the service model side of it, which we're capitalising on at the moment. And it's exciting too, because, being able to help customers, it's something we're so focused on, or I've always been focused on. It's about pulling people out of trouble. You're ringing me because there's a drama. Let us take that drama away from you.
Yep.
Okay, machine's broken down. Get it on a truck and send it to us. Or we'll come out and fix it. Or whether it's a rock drill down or you need more machinery. So we cover all bases.
And as your vertically integrated service offering has grown, and you're talking about all the relationships from the beginning, are you saying you're now just able to solve more problems for the same customers, and your business with them just grows?
Yeah, certainly. It's if I do jump in a car and head out to a mine site to chat to the bosses out there, we offer everything. Once upon a time you were just going out looking for work for Popey's Diesel, and now you'll overhear someone going, "Oh, the grader's broken down. It's it's old and it's busted. We need a new one." I go, "Oh, we'll just ring Matty at Tataris," or we got drifter problems. Oh, ring Alex at the rock drill company. There's always someone to ring. Oh, just blown a transmission. Here's Anthony's number at Powertrain Components. It's an easy sell because we cover all these bases. And it's fun. I enjoy being able to, solve these problems and help your clients.
Do you, like the companies you acquired along the way, like the research and development company, obviously these are all integrated into the underground world and everything that you guys do, but do you step outside that world as well with some of the stuff that those companies do into other industries?
Oh, not so much. It's mainly been around mining because everyone that's contacting us is, it's a problem around the mining. There has been people, reach out on LinkedIn and that and talk about prototyping, and a couple of guys from Sydney come down maybe last year to have a look at our facility, but nothing more is sort of ventured. We were just sort of talking back and forwards, but mainly it's a mining industry. There are other things out there. Again, some stuff you sort of can't say too much because there's people looking to do prototypes and that, but yeah, mining's what I know, so that's why it sort of revolves around that part.
Yep. I'm going to use this opportunity to take a quick break and just thank our sponsors, Capital Equipment Sales, for bringing this episode to us today. Will McCartney and the team, they were one of the first guys that jumped on board that helped bring this together. As I said to you before the show, she's been a bit of a big show bringing this up here and bringing the conversations like yours to our listeners. So I just want to shout out thanks for Will and the team. Make sure if you're looking for any good used above ground equipment, jump on to capitalequipmentsales.com and have a chat to Will and the team. Mate, I'm really lucky in this role. I get to speak to so many people like you and pick your brain and see how you did it. And there are these parallels that I draw between a lot of people and I see. And it's not being too risk averse with certain things, but knowing when to be risk averse and knowing when to take risks. How do you deal with risk? There's obviously a bit of risk in growing.
Oh, there's risk in everything that you do, A lot of it for me, it's a no-brainer, because it's niche market, a lot of what we do. When I first started out and I looked at it, because like I said, I started with nothing, so there was, high debt, trying to build workshops and facilities and, and pay it all off, But when I looked at it and I sort of thought, if there's an opportunity there and it all goes bad, can I still trade out the other side of this? Can I still have all these employees fed and, will it work? Yes, let's give it a crack. No, you got to let that ship sail.
Yep.
If someone else comes along and makes a go of it, makes $100 million out of it, well, good luck to them, it just wasn't my time. But, as it goes on now, further and further down the track, like I said, these opportunities not only, they present themselves now, or you can get, calls around things like, are you interested in this, or what do you think about that, which is really good, because then obviously our name's probably starting to get out there with everything that we do, so yeah, there is risk in it, but it's got to be a calculated risk.
Yeah. And did you, like taking the shift from mechanic and operator into business owner, did you have good mentors along the way? Are you entirely self-taught? How did that happen?
Self-taught, and you learn things the hard way sometimes.
Because you didn't have a phone until they were well and truly advanced. I can't imagine you spent too much time at night Googling on the computer. Like, how did that come about?
Oh, look, again, thirst for knowledge, like I always said. Once you're committed to something, I want to know everything there is to know about it. Business-wise, never done a business course. I've never done an MBA. I've never done any higher education, but I've always got that passion and thirst for knowledge, and I will learn. you do learn, you do make mistakes along the way, and you learn from them, And, even, like I said, I was a diesel fitter that come out of the underground, and I guess now I could almost say I've turned into a businessman. But every mistake or any trip I've had along the way, I've learnt from that, and I've made sure, like when I've started the next company, or like when I kicked Powertrain Components off, everything, all our ducks were in a row. Everything was neat and tidy within our operating systems, right down to our asset registers. Everything is spot on because, I probably could have done it better in certain ways at Popey's Diesel. So every company's so neat and clean, further on down the track, and that's that learning curve. You know, money wise as well. You start to learn all this thing about end of month invoicing and that. When all of a sudden you got no money, and you only make that mistake once. So all those little things, they add up.
The thing that really interests me when I hear growth stories is, at what point did you think this is really, like, when I plan things and they work, I still think, oh shit, that worked. You have this unwavering self-belief. You know it's going to work, so you do it. But there's still a moment when you go, oh, okay, this is working now. Is there like one particular moment where you just thought, this is snowballing, like this is moving now, and maybe not just in the initial business, but in your whole, the transition towards the group of companies now?
I probably haven't stopped to smell the roses and actually give it that thought now you mention it, Ryan. It's just so busy forging ahead. I think if I do look back at it, the success around Popey's Diesel, which was the dream, I've achieved that. I've certainly achieved that, but then it's just moved on, and I don't really have I suppose there are goals, to grow all these companies, and there is direction within each of these companies of about where we want to take them to. But as Apeiron as one, there's so much happening at the moment. It's hard to put a finger on all of it. It's got to, sort of step back a little bit soon and go, where are we going to take this? Because the people we're talking to, and like I said, what I was just doing in China last week, and the people we're talking to, just, it's pinch me moments sometimes, So where this could go, look, it's certainly on a global scale now, and it has been for a few years. Like we do operate, in the Philippines, in New Guinea and New Zealand. We sell parts into all over the world, not in big quantities, but, all of a sudden you'll get someone from Mali or Mongolia contact you via email going, can you get us one of these, and but we've got men that are, working out of, say, Oceania in the Philippines. They've been doing that for many years, going back and forwards, like on the specialist side of things with Powertrain Components. Popey's Diesel's had men over there. We've had men in New Guinea. We've had men in New Zealand, like all over the place. So, that's an achievement to get outside of just Mount Isa, I suppose. And, when I've gone down and, say, given a lecture at the TAFE College or whatever to, grade 12 students who are trying out, new things for next year, what am I going to do, to be able to tell them, like, don't limit yourself, and show them a map of the world and say, this has all come out of Mount Isa, that we've been, pointing at places around the globe. We've done work here. We've sold parts there. Don't think you're just going to be here. Aim big, aim big.
I feel really lucky to be aligned with the heavy sectors as a whole, but mining, just over the course of my career, has opened up so many possibilities to me, and I've been lucky to travel to certain places in the world. And there's not a lot of, I guess we live in this day and age where the internet and e-commerce, and there's a lot of business to be done remotely and online, but it truly is one of the global industries that can take you anywhere. And you don't have to be the biggest company on earth to end up into like a really big market as well. Where was the first place that you guys started to expand out into overseas?
I think the first place overseas might have been the Philippines. Went over there and we did some work and started supplying, parts and labour into there, and then it sort of moved from there into New Guinea. There was a call there as well for specialist labour, and then it's just snowballed from there. Again, these people that you perform that service for, let's say in New Guinea, and then that boss might leave and he might end up in Botswana, and then, they remember the service that you provided, and, now you're also connected. You're only an email away, so especially if they can't get something locally in Botswana, but they know you can get it out of Australia and you can uplift it from Perth and put it in a plane. It's so easy these days.
It was probably harder to get you in our studio on the Gold Coast than some of the stuff you need to do around the world.
Oh, look, I enjoy the travel. I enjoy the challenge. Probably a bit tired now because it was a long flight through the night last night. But, look, I enjoy this. I really do.
Where do you, what's a typical schedule look like? How much time do you spend in Mount Isa? What's a typical month look like for you?
It varies a lot. I try and divide my time up, to be around the workshop in Mount Isa as well, because if there's one thing I have learnt too, it's work-life balance. It's something I never had when I started. And pretty much anybody who starts their own company, I think, could all look at you nodding. You know how much work you put into building this, and the studios and all the rest of it. And people don't see that, the 18-hour days that go in for the first 5 or 6 or 10 years, until you start to get some money behind you and pay your debt down and all the rest of it. And I used to work one of those rosters that was just, 7 days on, 7 days on. And
it's not
appealing to a lot of people, believe it or not. But anyone who's built a business, successful business, will know that. You know, everyone goes through that. You can achieve anything in this life, anything at all, if you want to work hard for it. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
It's kind of funny because I talk to so many guys that started on the tools, and I started the opposite way. I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I went to design school, and I went in through advertising and then opened up into the industrial sector. And look, admittedly, being a creative and ideas person, I stupidly thought, I'll be right, some idea is going to come along and it's going to be the thing that's going to get me to where I want to be. I always had ideas, but it wasn't until I just started working and doing the work and working hard. Every single person I meet that sits across from me that has gone on this amazing growth journey, they worked hard and worked harder than anyone else. And there's no shortcut. It's just hard work.
In this day and age, there probably can. Some people might be able to shortcut it, with social media or
But even those people, you're designing that, you've sat up through nights. You've done, you've
that's
never
right.
just
That's
gone
right.
woken up without an alarm and thought I'll do a bit of work here.
No,
and
that's
then
right.
It just falls into
Hard
place.
work gets you everywhere. That's 100% right. But I suppose getting back to what I was saying before, there's got to be that work-life balance.
It has to be.
And I did a lot of years without that. Until I got that back, outside, like I said, outside of the business clothes and that, it's footy shorts and thongs and disappearing in the bush, catching barramundi, hunting pigs, that's what I live for. And even though you come back from a weekend away, sunburnt, just absolutely physically busted, you're mentally refreshed and you're ready to take the world on. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing for anyone in their own business, especially starting out, if you're driven, you want to work the hours, and when you love what you do, it's not work.
Exactly.
You love it. People say to me, "Oh, Pope, why don't you sell it all up? Why don't you stop work?" And I don't work. I do what I love doing. And sometimes it gets tiring and stressful, and that. Again, what I do, there's no, how was your day? It was okay. It's either ultimate highs or ultimate lows. That's what it is. And the ultimate highs way outweigh the ultimate lows. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. You know. So, loving what I do and got the backing of a great team. That's the other key. Is the team around you, not just in say Povey's Diesel, but across everything. I couldn't do all of this by myself. There's no one could. But the general management, the leadership team, right down through our workshop managers, our supervisors, they're all second to none. And not only are they the best at what they do in that chosen field, but they're damn good people as well. Right through to that my right hand, my COO, Yoka. Just they're there to back you. They believe in what you're doing, and they're the people that'll take the call at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. Just as they're sitting down to watch the football, and then or 2 o'clock in the morning because the client's ringing them because they're broken down. That's these people.
Well, it's funny, Dion had told me about you when he was first started working for you, and I didn't realise that the scale of your operations and all the other stuff you were doing, because he just painted a picture of a bloke that was out there in the workshop with them as well, and on the ground, and he obviously knew you in that capacity, and I think that's really admirable as well, that you're able to be so relatable to the guys that are on the floor. And
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it is.
Yeah.
It is important, I've worked for big companies and they don't even know your name. You're just a number,
Yeah.
To be able to walk out and speak to a guy and ask him how his wife is and his kids by their name, that means something,
Yep.
I really do. And, Dion, well, he probably would have told you, like I've thrown him in the ute and taken him out bush pig hunting with me, and that's a different way you can bond with your men.
Yep.
We brought some Philippine labour in recently in the last few years. And, I've taken all of those guys out bush. Imagine, coming from a place like Manila into outback Australia where there's just nothing for miles. We drive for 2 hours and you haven't even seen another car till we get to where we're going. And, that for me was a really special moment with those guys because, we went out there and it was all the firsts, the first time they've seen an emu and a kangaroo and, some of them first time they sat around a campfire because they can't do that over there. First time slept in a swag, I've cooked a meal in a camp oven. What's that, sir? Because they call me sir or boss Adrien, What's that, sir? And I said, it's a camp oven. Oh, what is camp oven? I'm going, mate, that's what we're eating, and really special bonding moments with those people too. And that's where you build loyalty as well and friendship, So I'd honestly like to be doing more of that. But it's been so busy. The kickoff to this year's been out of control, which has been fun. But I would like to actually, get a few more of my guys and get out bush a bit more.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's held us back a little bit too, apart from all the travel and me not being there, is the floods we've had in outback northwest Queensland lately. All this year it's been out of control how much water we've had, but it's all starting to reside now. So hopefully we'll stick around the Isa a little bit more and get out amongst it soon.
Well, mate, I grew up on the coast, and I recently went to Moree, and that's the furthest west I've ever been.
Really?
And look, there's probably people listening to this episode just going, "What a wanker!" But man, look, we're driving out to Moree through the cotton fields, and I'm thinking, "Wow, we are in the centre of Australia." And I looked on Google Maps, we're barely just a stone's. We hadn't moved, and I actually zoomed out and looked at where you guys are at Mount Isa, and you're out there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Dion drives home at Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if he's definitely not keeping a logbook that's probably going to get approved by the RMS or anything like that.
No.
But yeah, man, no, it's I'd love to come out one day. I always I read a stat, and I'm not putting shit on your town, but about the Mount Isa being one of the most contaminated postcodes in Australia. I think that's on the shift now because of the change in industry that's happened out there.
Oh, yeah, I think, look, if it's the lead you're talking about, it's a naturally occurring substance anyway in the ground, and if you're going to walk around and lick rocks, I guess you're going to get a bit of lead in you. But, other than that, there's no problems at all.
I used to work for environmental remediation business.
Yep.
And it's as a result of that, you have a lot of exposure to the civil world and large infrastructure projects. But I learned a lot about contamination, and I learned about towns like Wittenoon and the asbestos town. And, And that's where my sort of knowledge of that
that's probably a bit different,
is a little bit different than Wittenoon. I don't think you can even go there
Can't even compare it. No, can't even compare it.
Yeah, well, lead poisoning and asbestosis are two very different beasts, I guess.
Yeah.
They're probably both not good for you, but
no, not ideal anyway.
It's not what you want, no. So, like with your operations down in Melbourne, have you guys obviously got your office set up down there? How do you you spend a lot of time on planes bouncing around?
Yeah, look, we certainly do. 4 of the companies are based in Melbourne. There's 3 work out of the one office over in Cheltenham, and then we've got Tataris, his offices over in Hawthorn. Run a lot between. Like I said, we've got good guys, They run a really good ship as well with a little bit of guidance from myself. If everyone knows what the direction and the way we're pushing, you can let them go. I'm not one to, I'd like to say I'm not one to micromanage anyway, but as long as they got good direction, they've always got my support there.
What makes you tick? Are you quality focused? Are you looking at the books? What's your management style there? How do you get around?
Quality's what everyone wants, isn't it? Across not just mining, across anything that we do, you know, and there's got to be a focus on that, because without that you got nothing, you know. And I mean, as long as there's human hands involved, there's always going to be a drama some way or another, whether, you know, it's how you respond to that, you know, when there is a warranty consideration or something's gone wrong. It's how we respond, you know. And for me, that's always been my focus, is to look after the customer. And, you know, I remember once, it was Christmas Eve. This is quite a few years ago now, because my kids were still little, and we were out, you know, looking at Christmas lights in Mount Isa on the drive round, when I got the call that, you know, there was a machine was down, and I ducked into work, grabbed the cylinder, threw it in the back, you know, drove out. Just duck down in the back there, kids, while we dropped this off into the store, you know. And then we went back and checked Christmas lights, and we'll sort that out later on, you know. That's about getting the customer going, you know. And the customer remembers that too, that you go above and beyond, you know, to help them out, you know. So, and that gives you return and repeat business, you 100%. Know. It works both ways. Yep. But like I said, having that customer focus, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but there's, you know, certain companies out there, you know, they run by their rules, and you know, mightn't be as customer focused, but, you know, for us, that's what I like to think that we're about, is looking after our customers, doing the best job that we can.
Just circling back to customers and Mount Isa, and bringing your Chinese constituents out here, what's it like on the other side of the fence heading into China? Like, do you get shown good experiences by those guys when you're over there?
Oh, certainly.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly. Look, they're on another level over there. You know, it's almost embarrassing. You know, like, I know what we can achieve here in Australia. I really do. You know, but we're so hamstrung by vision and governments, and again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we don't have enough time. But, you know, there's such a great country we live in, and we've got everything, you know, especially when we talk minerals, and minerals are what provide everything that we've got, you know. We've got the iron ore, we've got the coal, we've got the base metals, we've got the precious metals, we've got oil, we've got gas, we've got everything. We just need vision. Yeah. You know, what breaks my heart is when I see stuff being built over in China, and they're working on, you know, this has got to be quality, you know, the concrete. When I was looking at it, and I was impressed by the concrete of this building, and they said, yeah, because it has to last a minimum 100 years for Mr. Lee's sons, you know. That's how they think. And I just wish we could be on that same page, you know, like, because we've got it all here and we could do it in Australia, but we've just let that go. Well, I want to do it, but it's just hard. It's hard with, you know, the cost of everything, that the way we do things, you know. We're fighting a losing battle, unfortunately.
We've spoken about this on several episodes recently, whether it be the Borges guys talking about in Ukraine OEMs, that there's this, and saying this in a dignified way, there's the perception of certain products that get manufactured in China that might not be of such a high quality, and it definitely is true in some instances. However, now the advancements in competition are real, and even down to, I saw an article about the rate at which they're able to lay new highways and push ahead with the infrastructure over there, and the initial Australian response straight away is, oh, well, it's got to be crap, it's not going to be good. But mate, I don't know, I look around, and even where we are here, the rate at which a small multi-kilometre section of light rail can progress versus things that seem to happen on a global scale over there with the technology and just getting it done.
They certainly have, you know, and there is that perception. There really is, you know, and I was one of them people, you know. When I first went there a couple of years ago, it was for that reason, to see it for myself, you know, and understand. And I went, wow, you know, like that not just on the cusp of it, they're there in certain areas, or the areas that I'm, you know, moving into. You know, I won't put my name around anything unless I'm sure of the quality and it's right, and it's 100%. You know, and people that I've spoken to in Australia about this, and I use the analogy, I suppose, but I don't remember it because I'm not that old. I'm getting there. But in the 70s, you know, anything that came out of Japan was affectionately known as Jap crap.
Yeah.
You know, because they hadn't got their QA and their QC processes down pat. And I learned about this as an apprentice, as you do in your first year when you're learning about quality controls and And I remember him explaining it to us when that was in the 90s when I did my apprenticeship. And by that time, if anything that was Japanese, it was considered quality. It was looked on as good, And that's when they explained, in the 80s, Japan got their shit together, basically. China's done that.
Yeah.
China's certainly done that, or the industries that I'm moving in over there, 100% they've done that. And what I just seen again last week, where they're forging ahead, there's robot welders, it is just on a scale that really, it honestly makes me sad. I stood there and looked at it, and I was in a new shed that wasn't there 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was 50,000 square meters, and it was just unbelievable, and it was quality. And it made me sad because I thought, why can't we do this in Australia?
We watched Reese sitting behind the desk over here. If you watch this show and I'm always referring to Reese. Reese is our producer. He sits behind the desk. He's over there watching, thinking, stop talking about me. We watched a doco on behind the scenes in the Tesla factory. And it was just mind-boggling, the robotic welding, just the automation of process there.
Yep.
No matter what you think or feel about the electrification of vehicles and Teslas, but it was just the size of the warehouse, how automated it was, the robot.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't think people
insane.
realise what actually gets made there. Like, let's have a look at your Apple iPhones.
Yeah.
Do you think they're quality?
Yeah.
Everyone likes them. Yeah. Where do you think they're made? And there's so much that's made over there, and like I said, I've dug right into it, and with what we're doing, with where my focus is and where we're going to push in the next 2 years, there's going to be a very big change in the perception of the mining industry. We're going to change the way we do things, and I'm so excited about what's coming.
Mate, and look, for everyone listening, Adrian hasn't even told me about this, so it's not like some secret that we know. I want to know. But
no, stay tuned. Oh, look, no, there'll be some media put around this. Well, like what I was saying, what we did last year and brought to Australia, and we've said nothing about that because we want to make sure it's a success, and it's breaking some records at the moment. So very soon there'll be some media release around that. And then we're already moving on to the next thing. That's how successful that part's been.
I nearly asked before, how many further steps ahead have you already got in the pipeline?
It changes every second month, I think. The next person that you meet who comes up with a great idea and how you can help and assist. But I don't know where it ends. Like there's so much out there. There's so much. Yeah, there's so much to do. There's just not enough time.
Before we break for the next segment, I have a little personal anecdote I'd like to share that perfectly sums up exactly what we're saying now. For some reason, when we moved into our new house, we bought 3 or 4 sets of tongs from Coles or somewhere. And in the past 2 weeks, every pair of tongs all broke at the same time. And I told my wife I'm going to go on Temu and buy them off Temu. And she said, no, I don't want to buy anything that's come out of those factories as if covered in shit or PFAS or something like that. And she goes, just get them off Amazon. And I said, it's the same product. It's just coming from a different supplier. And so I ended up just buying them off Amazon because they came quicker anyway. And when they came, they're actually better quality than the ones that we'd bought from Coles in the first place here. And that's just in a nutshell summarizes the perception versus quality piece versus what we've always been conditioned to think about where your products come from. And I guess, again, just the expedited rate of evolution of quality and technology coming out of other places in the world.
Some of the things I don't think people realise too, like when we're talking on manufacturing level, right, we're talking, say, CNC machines that are made by Akuma in Japan. Or they're made by, Mazak or Haas or Grob. You're talking top of the line, German, Japanese or whatever. That's what I've seen.
Yep.
That's what I've seen this week. All of these machines, and they're Japanese machines. And then the steel that they're manufacturing with is coming out of Germany and places like that, so they're using the best equipment and the best steel. It comes down to labour costs and it comes down to how much they produce.
Yep.
When you're talking big quantities, volume. That's exactly right. So, like just telling you that, now we're using the best of the manufacturing in the world, and using the best steel in the world.
Yeah.
It's going to be quality.
Well, mate, like even you would have heard on Steve Keir's episode from Akubra, same thing, always had the perception of the German engineered machines, and now that perception's just changed around what has to be the best quality.
Yep.
the segue is into our new segment, and it's called Tech Talk, and we've brought on a new sponsor, and they're the Fleet Office. And the Fleet Office offer comprehensive end-to-end fleet GPS and efficiency tracking across all elements of managing a fleet of equipment. I have only just started to learn about this product myself. I was given a demo this week, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but mate, they could very well be very handy for your underground fleet as well. I don't understand the limitations of the GPS tracking, so I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Oh, look, I tell you what I've seen in the 30 years I've been in mining, the technological advancements, like it was air start.
Yeah.
The machines when I first started, and then, they were starting to become cabin, enclosed cabin with air conditioners and, and electronic control units and all the rest of it. Like it's the advancements now and towards automation, autonomy now is a commonplace in a lot of mines. So yeah, there's been massive, massive advancements in the mining sector that I've seen in my time.
And that's why we want to formalise these segments in the show, because no matter who the guest is and what sort of business you operate, we want to be able to sort of just take stock for five and talk about what you're seeing out there that is, at the forefront of what's happening, or any info that you can share with our listeners that they might not know about, because they're not all out there in China and travelling around the world like you and seeing this stuff. So I guess probably a good segue into that is to understand more about the role of the R&D company in your group a little bit more. We obviously skimmed on it.
It's used more so as an internal mechanism. Like I said, we have had people that have contacted us and said, I've got an idea, can you see what we can do? If you come to me with an idea, Ryan, and you describe it, we'll get it down on paper and we can draw it all up right to your specifications. Goes, is that what you're chasing? And you go, yep. You pay us, you walk away. That's your IP. Catch you later.
Yep.
Now, with the BNS Precision, we can go, hey, Ryan, do you want us to make you a prototype? We'll make you one, and you can go away and test it and come back, tweak it, do whatever you need to make sure it works. And then we can even offer, on a major scale to manufacture, because we can do that in Melbourne out of our Melbourne facility. So it goes hand in hand. The BNS Precision and the research and development company run hand in hand. That's why the engineers work out of the same factory there as well. But I mean, even down to things that I want drawn up through Popey's Diesel, whether it's a lifting device and get it certified, instead of having to go through another third party, company, I can send it to our engineers now and get it all done. It's just such a handy, integration of everything that we've got.
You're probably the wrong person to ask this to, actually, but do you see gaps in technology in the underground world here in Australia? Or, again, are you the wrong person to ask because you're filling those gaps and solving those problems?
Probably, honestly, I see the underground mining environment is harsh, and the technology's just gone so far forwards. Sometimes now you're not getting the machines to perform because they're broken down and people are taking 10 times longer to fix them because they're so complicated, I'm actually of the opinion certain machinery needs to be simplified, because for what it is, if it just doesn't break down, you're going to gain, your meterages and your tons by just simple operation. I can see, machines that were used 20 years ago that were fit for purpose then, that are still fit for purpose now. We've just taken it to a degree that I don't think we need to. Certain machines, will work, over shift break. They'll keep drilling, etc. That's brilliant, that works. But there's other things that I think we can really simplify and make a better machine again.
Yeah. You've obviously been to quite a few of the expos and shows around the world. What's the coolest bit of tech that you've seen that's not necessarily aligned with what you're doing out there right now? What's the show-stopping experience that you've had in the last decade at a mine expo or a con expo?
Well, I don't know. You put me on the spot there. Mine expo, I probably had a headache a few
about
days
time.
there. So it's, I don't know. There was an Australian company there. I'm trying to think of what their name was now. I can't think of their names, but I'm proud to say they're an Australian company that had some really good technology around Bluetoothing, pressure gauges.
It wasn't Safe Gauge, was
That's it.
Yeah,
Safe
right.
Gauge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. We've spoken about them on here.
Yeah.
I actually, I went and met them at Con Expo and tried to tell them when they're back in Australia to come and have a chat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, look,
that was one of those things that we heard about on the episode with Hannah Legg, and she'd just been endorsed to promote their products. And it's one, every now and then something comes along and you just go, wow,
yeah,
that is genuinely
that
a
is
great
generally
product.
a great product. From personally, I haven't used it, and I'm not, advertising or anything here, but just the concept of it, it takes people out of the line of fire and away from, moving, parts or areas that they, don't need to be in, So when I first seen that, when I was walking along at Mine Expo and being a tradesman, being a fitter myself, and wow, that's a great idea. I really, really like that idea, and I have followed what they've been up to in the further, technology that they've brought out. So, I'm really proud to say that they're Aussies, and good luck to them.
Yeah, no, mate, it's we definitely do want to discuss that product more with the guys on the show.
Yeah.
So if you are listening, or I might send you a clip of this, come and have a chat.
Come and have a chat.
And look, yeah, thanks again to the Fleet Office for supporting the show. It's because of our partners that we're able to have these chats here now, and we want to keep doing them. So continuing along, industry, mate, the importance of reputation. I think, like as we've grown, we've just recently sat down and done our own vision and values. And to me, the reputation, not just the quality of the work we do, but my own reputation is more important than anything. Money in particular, which unfortunately is a reality. But it's for you, along the way, have you always been cognizant of the reputation that you've got?
Oh, you always want to, pride yourself on providing a good service. When reputation, comes along with that. If you're providing shit, then your reputation's going to be the same, isn't it? So, like I said, we all make mistakes along the way, and it's how you react when you make those mistakes. If you own it, and fix it, then the client's going to look on you and go, well, he's an honest sort of a guy. We want to keep dealing with this bloke, and he's men. And if that's what you portray and that's what you demand of all your people as well, whether they're management or their workers, to put out the best that they can, I think that there's your reputation right there.
Yeah.
There's one thing that, like I say to the guys, especially the Popies Diesel, we've got people there that have been there for, over 15 years, 10 years anniversary, 15-year anniversaries. So it's like a broken record when I talk at Christmas parties and that. But I say every year something along the lines of, when I started, that was me. I was Popey, But as you grow on and you grow, it's my name that's out there, but it's you guys here that are giving me the good name now. It's not me anymore. It's the work that you're punching out of these workshops day in, day out. That's my name's on it, And that's why I say thank you so much, everyone. Here's to the year. Here's a great year, and here's to next year what we've had. Thank you so much, because you're contributing to my good name by every bit of good work that you do.
Do you look at my brother with your name on his shirt and go, oh, shit, what have I done?
You could not be chalk and cheese, you pair. Look at you, clean cut, shirt tucked in, and then Dion, the diesel fitter, who's covered in grease and snot from head to toe.
Well, mate, I'm in. I got my RMs on today, but the episode we just last shot, I was actually barefoot in a pair of shorts under the desk. It's the I had sort
it's
of
the perception.
Well, I saw a thing back in the day, and it was like a side view of Carl Stefanovic and the guys, and they just literally had boxer shorts and thongs on. And you never know what's going on.
You'd never know. Yep.
But yeah, no, mate, it's I just love to pick the brains of guys like you and see how it's sort of snowballed to this point. And one of the other things we do on the show is we introduce our new heavy business segment, which you may have heard in one of the more recent episodes, and that's brought to you by McGregor Finance Group. Craig McGregor's my finance guy. He helped us put all this together, and he's actually someone who listens to and loves the show as well.
Yep.
And the reason we wanted to create these segments is because there's so many younger operators that listen to the show, and we get to learn so many cool things by picking guys like your brain. So I want to ask you a few questions around the art of heavy business. How do you structure finance across multiple businesses like that? Is that the reason for it, setting up the corporation? Do they run as separate entities? When you start to grow, what's the most advice you could give anyone at that point?
Well, I suppose, understanding finances, cash flow. Cash flow is a big thing. To Tara, I suppose, that's always going to have, debt and a lot of debt
Yeah.
because, you're buying machinery and you're putting it out on hire, I'm very lucky that a lot of the companies are debt-free. So, they can back each other,
Yeah.
But understanding cash flow, understanding debt, balance sheet, all of that, again, something that I had to learn. That's something that needs to be considered and taken very seriously because you can get into trouble very quickly if you don't.
Yeah. Well, that, mate, you've jumped through to my second question. It's around managing cash flow in mining operations in particular, because I think, like, say we deal with a lot of guys that are running hire fleets and civil contractors, and I don't know, it's on another level sometimes at that mining end of town. What's the advice? Is it having access to good people, good facilities along the way?
All of the above, and understanding your costs.
Yeah.
What does it cost to put that key in the lock, open that door for the day, for the week, for the year, your fixed costs, and then extrapolate off that, So, if you don't know what things are costing you, you got to do that to start with.
Maybe reflecting on your own experience or some of the people that you know, like, where do you think operators probably get finance wrong?
Probably not understanding everything. Our government's got their hand out for quite a lot. You don't realise how much until you get into business that there's just all these taxes that just keep coming and coming and coming, So make sure you've got a good accountancy systems in your corner, good accountants.
Yeah.
Regular meetings with them to understand where you've been in the last few months and where you're going forwards as well. That right there, like tax planning. You should be doing that in the last 3 to 4 months. For the end of financial year. You're never going to not pay tax. That's part of what we do, but you need to be able to minimise it as much as you possibly can because look at what they're doing with the taxes we do pay. They're not doing any good with it, so you might as well give them as least amount as possible.
We were only talking about that yesterday, the classic Kerry Packer clip when he's sitting in...
How good is that? Yeah, and it's true. It is true. And and everyone should do that. They should minimise their tax as much as they possibly can.
What's he say? Or you should get your head read.
Yeah.
Well,
it's dead
true.
right. It's dead right.
So any plans to set up a Irish HQ? Isn't that what Google do?
No, Ireland's too far away too. There's enough travel.
Yeah, look, I do. This is maybe a little off topic, but like, where do we go from here? Because we have so many layers of tax applied to us, and they seem to be more new schemes in the pipeline. Like, where do we go? What do we do?
It's a hard one, mate. We need to support our businesses. That's the biggest thing. I mean, that's, especially mining and agriculture. They're the two big things we've got in this country. That's the backbone of our country is those two things. That's where it all comes from. Yeah, you've got other things, tourism, etc. But, the percentage that they, contribute to the country is nothing on those two industries. We need to support them. We need to back businesses. If businesses are thriving and they're paying tax and they're, it's returning into the economy, we need to give those a break, And I won't go down the whole, but I will say the one thing that, burns me is payroll tax. It burns me so hard. You hit this threshold, and you should be rewarded.
Yeah.
And they hit you harder. And, the amount that we pay in payroll tax across the group, the way I look at it is we can put on dozens of apprentices and trainees and build this country even further. And we just get smashed, It burns me really hard.
You look at, as someone with an incredibly small and niche business, it does two things. One, it's disheartening, and you think, well, fuck, what?
It certainly is.
You feel like you're starting to get momentum, and then bang, you get hit again. But then it's motivating because you just think, I've just got to get up above and beyond this, and just that.
Well, have a think about for the rural people, rural New South Wales, rural Queensland. They're still driving over roads with potholes, and there's nothing gets thrown out into that part of the country. Mount Isa is a classic example with, the amount it contributes to the economy. And I understand, the populations are in the cities and there's bridges and, all that needs to be built. But, some of it needs to be returned to the regions as well. It really does.
Before we go on any further down the fringe of any particular rabbit holes on this show, I am going to cap off the heavy business segment and thank Craig McGregor and the team because, look, we're very thankful for Craig's assistance, and he's that guy that I get to ring when I need help, and it's about surrounding yourself with good people.
Yep.
And realising that, I'm not a finance guy, so I've got to put the right people around me.
Yep.
So look, if anyone out there is needing a bit of advice or help, make sure you jump on our website, scroll down, find Craig's details, and get in touch. I don't want to go politics on the show.
No.
But Bob Catter, some of the boys and my mates, Zach, who just moved out of Mount Isa, one of Dion's mates, every now and then one of the boys to have a photo with him, like a selfie in the pub or something like that. Is he a man about town? Like, yeah.
Oh, for a bloke who's in his early 80s now, he's still full of life. The amount of travel he does, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And anyone can approach him and say g'day. I remember when I took him to Melbourne to show him our facility and what we were doing down there a couple of years ago, and we were having dinner at just like a local pub, and once we finished dinner, and got up to walk out, that's when everyone was coming over to him and he pulled up, took his cowboy hat off, he's putting it on their head, he's taking photos, everyone's saying g'day to him. He's very approachable.
He's always impeccably dressed when I see him.
He is.
Have you ever seen him in the footy shorts and thongs around town?
No, I can't say I ever have. No, I never have.
Yeah, it's funny, like the older generation just maintain this high level of appearance, no matter even if you are in the public spotlight or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy, Bob.
Look, man, we go to the 5 quick ones segment.
Yep.
And I know you know how it rolls. In fact, you know what? I actually want to ask you, from a listener to a guest, how's your perspective been of the show walking in here now?
I've enjoyed it.
Yep.
No, I've enjoyed it. It's been good, mate. Really good.
Yep. I was hoping you didn't give us any shit feedback. So. Mate, 5 quick ones. Number one, what's your motivation?
Yeah. Look, like I said, it was always a goal, for the Popies diesel at the start, and there was the drive to do that. And once that happened, things had just snowballed to a point where even if you want to turn it off tomorrow, you can't. There's so much going on. I think now it's more so just to see where we can take this. Like I said, the meetings I've had in the last week or so and the people that I've met, they operate on a global scale. And it's just exciting. It's really, really exciting. Your mind, you walk out of some of these meetings and your mind's just tumbling, going, what just happened in there, and how are we going to support this going forwards, And so now it's just a challenge, and I love that. Like I said earlier, I love those challenges, and they're presenting themselves all the time. And as long as that happens, I'm gonna continue doing this.
How often do you get back to shoot pigs?
As much as I can, which hasn't been much this year, but like I said, I love disappearing into the bush with me mates and me dogs, and yeah, it's as soon as it starts to dry out in that back country and I can get a bit of time off on the weekends, I'm hoping, was it today? Saturday today? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll fly home tomorrow and catch up with some work this week and hopefully disappear into the great outback this weekend coming.
Do you live on a property? Is that, or are you
No,
in town?
I actually live in Mount Isa, but we're very blessed out there, and the fact that I've spent so much time out there, and I know a lot of station managers and that, and to be very privileged to be able to just have permission to roll onto some of these properties, and you're talking big properties too, 700,000-800,000 acres, so. There's never a problem. You're not waking anyone up if you want to have a few too many beers and dance around the fire and, in your undies and shoot guns in the air. No one's going to care, So, like I said, there's no service. You can have a total switch off, and that's where I do my best work, I think.
Well, that's my next question. When do you most feel in the flow state? People talk about being in your flow state when everything's flowing, everything's on fire. Is it when you get out there and reset, or is there a part of your job? Is it when you're in transit and you're coming up with ideas? Where do you feel the happiest doing business?
Oh, look, outside of work, like you say, out bush, that's a really nice place for me. But I think, when we're achieving things, business-wise, when you set goals and then you're starting to tick them off, and whether they're big milestones or they're just, what we want to achieve in the next 3 months, those short-term goals. Every time you tick those off, it's an achievement, and that's what keeps us all going.
Yep. What is a habit you've developed that significantly improves your productivity?
Lists.
Yeah.
lists,
Do
definitely.
you use your phone notes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I mean constant. Like I'll be writing lists on Monday, Tuesday on the stuff that I'm going to personally do around the house on the weekend, like
Yeah.
whether, you're going to mow the lawn, but there might be other things that you don't want to forget. But so I've got work lists and I've got, like as in work around the house, but I've got the work stuff, where, or ideas,
Mate, I'm the same. Like we run a scheduling integrated CRM and project management software here, but separate to that, I still just use an old fashioned list. And I know, and I actually sometimes wonder if I'm starting to get early onset of dementia because I rely so much on those lists. Like I'll write on the list what day I'm going to mow, and I've actually scheduled that when I know the weather's going to be good because I don't know, when you're busy, man, I'm a real list guy. I feel like there's a slippery slope to writing lists, particularly if you start writing lists about writing lists, then you'd sort of lose all productivity.
No, all of that stuff has to be. I mean, look, there's your weekly, there's your monthly. Yeah. And at the moment, like this year, Mrs. loves me for it, but I went and got, at Christmas time, went and bought whiteboard markers. And you know how like on your inbuilt cupboards and that, and you get the one, the whole thing's a mirror from floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can't even see herself in that at the moment. I've got that many, one side of it's personal goals to achieve in 2026 and the other side's work goals.
Yeah.
Some of them, and I mean, we're only 4 months into the year and I've got maybe 30 or 40% of it ticked off.
Yeah.
We've achieved some pretty cool stuff already this year on a personal level. Not much on a personal level because we've been so busy on the work level, but I've got more stuff ticked off on the work side. So that, I believe, if you put that up and you're seeing that stuff all the time, or you're reading it, or it's around you, you're thinking about it, you will achieve that. You will make that happen. When you just go, I'm going to do this, it never happens.
Mate,
You've got to drive towards it.
I'm a big advocate of the visibility of your goals. And we went to, pre-COVID, there was a series of conferences that they were running under this company called Success Resources, and they'd bring out Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and all these guys. And like on the surface level, it really was just this multi-level marketing, sales. All the speakers would come out, they'd motivate you, they'd tell you to go and join their program. It was a big sales funnel, but what I would take from listening to each of those speakers was just that unashamed, just being super proud of your goals. Like I used to go and do my New Year's resolutions, but every year now I set that time aside to decompress and sort of strategize, and not just from a business perspective, but look at what are my wellness goals, what are my business and personal finance goals, relationship goals. Like you get busy, you don't even get to go and say good day to mum and dad anymore. And I know it seems like sometimes I don't even want Bianca to see what I'm writing, but I'm like, make sure I get home to see my family X amount of times this year. If you don't set those goals and you don't keep them visible, life slips by and then you don't reach your goals.
It does. It's only, we're still picking up beer lids from Christmas and we just had Easter the other day. That's how quick these years are flying by now. So, again, to have these goals right in front of you, whether it's on the bathroom mirror or wherever it is or in your office somewhere, to see them all the time, that keeps it at the forefront of your mind.
Well, that's what there was a bloke, Adam Hudson, he's actually from the Gold Coast and now he's since taken off overseas. He's in that sort of wave of people that just went, we've had enough what's happening here at the moment, we're going to set up somewhere else. But he would talk about hanging them in your toilet, on the back of your toilet door.
Yep.
And this dude was living in like this beautiful beachfront penthouse. And I still love that he just still had the blue tack paper up on the toilet door.
Yep, driven man. Yep.
Got to do it. What's something you had to sacrifice to get where you are?
Yeah, sleep and time with a young family. I think.
Mate, you do look pretty bloody good for a bloke that's just flown in from China. I honestly reckon I look tireder than you.
Yeah, no, back in the early days of business, definitely time. I used to try and put Sundays aside, because my kids were young then, and I always try to do something special on a Sunday, with like just me and my girls and that, and my son when he was born, like take him to the park just to on the swing, something they'd remember. I remember I used to do that with Dad, or we go and have breakfast together and that, always try and do something on a Sunday, and then once I started getting that work-life balance a bit more then, because I love the outdoors, we're out camping and hunting and that and fishing with the kids, which was something they'll always remember as well. But, my very first child, I missed the first words, first steps, all those milestones, which, it's heartbreaking as it is, I was trying to build a business as well, but I've made up for it in every other way as I've got older, and trying to spend that time with them as much as I can and make sure it was quality time. Yeah. So it's a hard balance, it's a really hard balance, but yeah, make the time, definitely.
How many kids do you have?
3.
Yep.
3, 2 girls and a boy.
How old are they?
They're all grown up now. Yeah, 23, 21, and 17.
Do they have interest in coming up through the ranks in the business, or are they off doing their own thing?
Off doing their own thing, yeah. The youngest, my boy's doing a mechanical trade. He's looking to do that. But, girls, they're models, mate. They're not diesel fitters. So, well, they're models in my eyes anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last one, we ask everyone, you hear it all the time, you've listened to all the episodes, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
I'd say not everyone's like you. In the fact, when I say that, it's I got burned a few times, in business because, I shook a bloke's hand and, that's a deal, isn't it? You're going to pay me this and done. Not everyone works like that. I soon found that out real fast, That's one thing I always taught, you shake a bloke's hand, that's a contract. And if things go bad, you move heaven and earth to make sure that you fulfill that contract, And, I got burned a few times early on in business simply because of that. I shook a bloke's hand and then you start to find out they don't deal like you do. So, I'd probably warn myself about that and don't be so trusting of people. Yeah, they're not all like you, Don't get me wrong, there's some damn good people out there and they far outnumber and outweigh the shitty people that I've probably met. There's only a couple. But, there's a lot of good people out there.
I'm going to add a sixth question. What's your key takeaway from the journey thus far?
Enjoy it. Yeah, enjoy it. It's my father said something to me once there a few years ago. Like you save and save and save. Like he's 75, he's 76 this year, and he said even if I tried to spend it all now, like I couldn't because you're just in that mindset because you've saved your whole life ready for your retirement. So, I haven't seen any trailers, getting towed behind the hearse to take all your stuff to the cemetery, and although, like I lead a pretty simple life, like I said, footy shorts and thongs all I'll do, but, if you've got an opportunity to enjoy some of the finer things in life, I think it's worth taking, and make some special memories or special moments. I think that's something certainly worth doing, especially with people that you care about,
I'm 39, I'm 40 this year, and I still consider myself young, but I'm old. I remember when I was you just walk into the pub, I see 40-year-old blokes, I'm like, look at those old men.
Yeah.
And that's me now, but I still don't feel any older than I did back then. And I never travelled much in my early 20s, and I always thought, I'll do that one day. I just got to get ahead in business, and this will happen fast. You have this idea of how things are going to go. And then all of a sudden you're in your 30s, and then so we did start to travel more. And even when we left to go to ConExpo, I saw a sign on the wall. And I know it's a cliche, but the journey truly is the destination. I don't think the first time my now wife and I came back from Europe, there was never any one particular part of that whole 5 weeks that was the wow moment. It was the whole thing. And it was even when you look back and it's like the train you catch right through Italy or the overnight ferry between here and there. And I think the one thing I saw flying out to ConExpo just said experiences, not things. And I don't know. I kind of wish I'd travelled a bit more when I was younger. So I've got to really ramp that up.
Yeah. Well, go and get those whiteboard markers, mate. Start drawing it all over the missus mirrors.
Yeah. No, man, but look, I've really enjoyed the chat. Have you got any questions for us? It's not often that I sit down and talk to anyone that I know that has heard everything we've said through this microphone thus far.
Yeah, no, look, I honestly, when you asked me to come on and that, and I thought, well, look, this will be great, and I thought I'd probably start listening to a few of the potties, and look, I've really enjoyed them. I really enjoy, listening to these people that, have struggled and built something from nothing. It's the success story around that. That's what motivates me. That's what drives me. And hearing people do that as well. And that's why once I started listening to them, I just went listen to the whole lot. Really enjoy those. There's a couple others that I listen to, like the Australian Financial Review. They've got a one called How I Made It. Yeah. And they bring out like just a series of them during the year.
They're not long enough though. No. I listened to Wes Maher's episode and it was only like 20 minutes.
Yeah, they don't go for very long at all. No. But those people, they're inspiring people, that have done that. So that's why I really resonated with your podcast, to be able to hear and sort of, think, oh, I did that, or I did, I remember doing that when you've worked, I got home from work one day at, thinking I was having an early knock-off, and it was like, 5:30 in the afternoon. I got a call for a breakdown and ended up going underground and got home at, 5:30 the next morning, so you've done a 24-hour shift sort of thing, like we've all done that in business, So that's why I've liked your podcast so much, mate. It's been great.
Oh, thanks, mate. Like that's, for me, as someone who was employed for a long time by somebody and then went out and did it on my own, when I found those podcasts and I heard the growth stories of these amazing people that you hear of, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all of these sorts of guys, the one thing you sort of learn along the way is no matter who I meet and whose story I hear is we're all just humans and we've all just gone through real similar challenges, albeit a different field or in a different way, or rode a different wave of the economy at a certain time or something like that. But I'd love to hear the stories of how people did it.
Yep.
And funnily enough, there's so many parallels.
There is. And anyone that's successful, that's worked hard to get there, there's very similar stories.
One more thing, and this is not how I normally end the episode. I nearly asked you this before and I forgot. What do you think about the concept of luck? I don't like people go, oh, yeah, it is lucky, or that's just
you make your own luck.
Yeah,
luck transpires from hard work.
Yeah,
some people say, right place, right time, but it's not. It comes back to hard work. That's what it is. Putting yourself out there and having a go. That's what it's all about. Yeah. I don't like using that term luck. I think that derives out of what you've put yourself in that position.
I believe the word luck exists for a reason, and coming back from Vegas, they market it very heavily.
Yeah. Oh yeah, don't they?
But even behind that luck, there's many, many algorithms that help you get to that point of ever attaining luck in Vegas. But to me, luck is the culmination of timing, sustained effort, that right place, right time. There's so many factors and they all transpose on a moment. And a lot of people say like, oh, he was an overnight sensation, or wow, that growth really happened overnight. And you've even said yourself, there becomes an exponential curve where there's sustained effort, where things do increase. And
that's what people see at the end. They see that monumental growth and rise, but they don't see the maybe 9 years behind that.
The flat line
building
that goes
to that point
and
putting all the processes in place and setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
All of that stuff has to happen. You can have all the luck in the world. You can't be successful and sustain that, over a period of time if you don't have everything set up right in the background and that includes the right processes and more importantly is the right people.
Yeah.
We're heavily reliant on other people, in any business, unless you're selling shirts or something like that and you've got robots picking them and packing them and sending them, we're reliant on people, and you need good people and you need to be able to train them in your vision and how you want to do it. And that's the only way you're going to succeed is everyone pushing the right direction.
Yeah. I also thought of something else before when we were talking about robots and these mega factories. I don't even know who said this quote, maybe Steve Jobs. The world around you was built by people no smarter than you. Like everything you experience, even when you go into one of those factories, it's amazing, but someone had that idea along the way, and just through perseverance and whether it be through passing on the torch through acquisitions and there's going to be a point at everyone's journey where their own capabilities cap out, and that's where you hand it on to somebody else or another entity to continue that along the way. But yeah, that's why I love this industry and I love seeing some of this stuff. And when I do have a bit of spare time jumping on YouTube and looking at some of these huge factories and things like that you get to probably see firsthand, because it's incredible that it started somewhere with an idea.
Someone's always had an idea, and that's the one thing that AI can never take away. You know, and look at how popular it's becoming, but you know, it'll never have the ideas that you're going to have. You know,
no, and I'm gonna say it now, and I said to Reese the other day, I have a real problem. I'm kind of getting sick of going onto social media and just seeing ChatGPT captions that are put in place by other marketing agencies and other marketing professionals. And it's either that your clients have entrusted you to do something and you're just taking the absolute piss by copy and pasting a ChatGPT caption in place, or you've either become so reliant on it that you've got nothing left to give in terms of creativity. AI has the potential to improve our lives in so many ways.
Yep, agree.
But it also has the potential to just ruin things. And for me, as a marketing professional in the heavy space, I don't even want to open my socials at the moment because, man, it's just this chat GPT echo chamber. And it's kind of really disheartening. But you've got to look at the positives. For those of us out there that are having a crack and using a bit of creativity to help differentiate, there is going to be a lot of opportunity as as it starts to stagnate out there at the moment. Because, man, you don't strike me someone who spends a hell of a lot of time analysing captions on social posts, but it's getting pretty dire out there at the moment, man. It's it's changing fast. There's creativity's fading away fast.
Yeah, but you'll still always have an imagination. That's the one thing it won't have. Well, it might have one day, but at the moment, that's where you beat it. Yeah. You know, your imagination is the only thing that limits you, Ryan, you know, and that's what I say about us and Apeiron, you know. That's the only thing that limits us is your imagination. We'll do anything together, you know. So, yeah, I look forward to the next, like I said, 12 to 24 months. It's, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. Well, mate, look, you guys have an amazing story, an amazing group of companies, and I really appreciate you coming in. So thanks a lot.
Oh, mate, it's been really great. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.